Okay, we're on the final part here. And as you can see, I've actually only written 2 tests for this last piece for the printing. And we're going to go ahead and do the argument one first. And this is basically saying that when a row is negative, it's going to throw an exception. So let's go ahead and do this by saying test calculator, print triangle, -1, and run our test to make sure this works appropriately. Ooh. Right, and if we come here, we actually see that it didn't. Good. So we'll come back to our code. We'll say if rows less than 0, we will throw a new argument out of range exception. Save it, come back to our code, run that, and we are successful. Now for the fun test. So in this one, I'm expecting, or I'm testing for valid output to occur from the print triangle method. In this case, I'm expecting that for my input-output, right, that I'm going to have a call to WriteLine that's basically going to contain 1, 5, 10, 10, 5, and 1. Okay? Now, the one thing about this is when we do the print, you're going to have a number of lines that are going to come out rather than just the final line. So I'll want to actually make this dot repeat, or right, at least once, which means that this exact version of WriteLine should happen at least one time. Okay? So that's our expectation. We will now go ahead and call test calculator print triangle 5, and we'll do test calculator, and mock input output dot verify all expectations. And of course, if we try to run it right now, it's going to fail. Okay. So let's go ahead and let's make our code work. Now this is where we actually see how a single test, which can verify some aspect of our functionality, can be a simple thing to write, but encapsulate a lot of what's going on. So in this case, I am going to go ahead and create this body. So I do for, right, r is equal to 0, r is less than or equal to the rows that's passed in, and then I'm going to increment r, right? And then I'm going to go ahead and do something with my columns, but this one's actually going to be less than or equal to the row that we're on. Okay. And we're going to go ahead and here get each of the values, value at our row and column, and then we're going to append that to a string. Now, of course, we could do this using the regular string appenders, but because we're doing a lot of string manipulation, a better idea would be to use the string builder object. So I'm going to come out here and I'll create a string builder, and I'll call it line. Okay, and this is going to be equal to a new string builder. And then what I can do here is I can do line.append, right, format, and I'm going to append my value with a space after it because I want it to be space separated, my value. Okay, and then for each line that gets finished, I'm going to want to print that out, which means I need my IO object. Well, luckily, this is constructed with an IO object, but we're not saving that off, and we need to do that. Now, one of the nice things about ReSharper is we can actually come to a parameter, Alt-Enter, and we can tell it to introduce a field for us. Right? And that automatically creates all of the neat code that I want, including my field that I can access, and then assigning that in here. And it's even smart enough to make it an immutable one, because immutability is a good thing to have. We'll come down here. Now we can do io.WriteLine. Okay. Now because we used a string builder, we need to first convert that string builder to a string object by doing line.toString. And then the one thing you'll notice is I will always have an extra space at the end, and I want to get rid of that. Luckily, strings in .NET have a method that helps us with that, which is the .trim method. Okay, and that'll remove any white space from the beginning to, or on the beginning or end of the string that we're giving it. Okay, and that should be our implementation. So let's go back to our test and let's see if this actually worked the way we wanted. If we run this, boom, we see that we actually succeed. Now we have just completed all the tests inside of our project. I'll come over here and I'll say run unit tests, which will run all the tests that we have in here. Okay? And we can see that all of our tests actually passed successfully. At this point, let's go ahead and try to run our application and see how well it works. So we'll go ahead and run this using the shortcut Control F5. Okay, that's the same as coming up here to start without debugging. Okay, and we can say, hey, it wants to get the number of rows to print. I'll go ahead and do 10. Let's do 5 because that's what we were on before. And we hit enter, and voila, we have our output. Okay, yay. Now there are a couple of things on this application that we could do to make this nicer. For example, you could figure out beforehand just how many rows there are going to be, and then you could actually change your application so it adds the appropriate number of spaces, right, between each of these, so that depending upon how deep you go, you actually have a triangle shape in your output, right? That would be a fun challenge for anybody. Try doing it TDD style. Right, let's go ahead and just one more time, let's run it with a larger value. Let's go to 10 rows, and we can still see that we are successful. Okay. Well, I hope this was very informative, and I really hope this helped you, you guys to be able to see just how you can go about finishing the application using really, really small steps. I mean, just little pieces here and there to create something that's much larger and has some really neat functionality. So now that you have this, try extend this however you feel appropriately, as well as complete the assignment that was given you. Okay? Good luck, and if you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment or send me an email.